Well, welcome everybody to the Y Factor podcast. I am delighted to have with me today Ian Carmichael. Ian, welcome.
Good morning, Ian. It's a pleasure to join you.
Oh,
Hope this is um, educational and informative. So yeah,
I
but let's crack
know it
on.
will be. I know it will be. So look, by way of background, for those people out there that don't know you, Ian is a specialist consultant working in the printing and sustainable packaging arena. He's a trailblazer actually in the printing inks and packaging realm. He's had 3 decades of game-changing expertise. He was formerly the managing director of an ink company called Doneck. He looked after their UK business. And he's not just revolutionized, but he's expanded the product lineup, spearheading cutting-edge ink testing facilities, tackling the toughest regulatory and sustainable challenges head on. He's also not frightened to speak his mind, which is rather refreshing in this space. He's a dynamic now independent consultant, the go-to guru for packaging converters, printers, and brand owners. And he's developed insights into ink systems, Analog's role, maintenance. We'll explain what Analog's role is later. And the next level of circular economy strategies, renowned for his hands-on mastery, relentless problem solving, and unwavering dedication to food safe, eco-conscious print solutions. He's a force to be reckoned with. Buckle up. This is going to be an interesting conversation, right?
It could be.
Yeah. Well, I always start with my interviews with people. So on a light note, tell me, on your travels, both work and pleasure, where's the most cool place or fascinating place you've had the privilege to visit?
I think the most fascinating place, which I'll probably come on to in my most challenging situation, as you know, I'd fallen into a little bit of ill health 2 or 3
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say Glasgow Art Museum.
Oh.
Absolutely, I was blown away with the paintings and the history behind it.
Huh.
Um, Not a football stadium, Ian, or a golf course. Although
You do like your
I would
golf?
say St Andrews. Oh yeah, absolutely. St Andrews, just the sheer awe of the place and all the legendary sportsmen that have played there. Yeah, that probably blew me away.
So
And
you, where were you brought
then
up? Was it where were you brought up? Where were
I
you
was
born?
brought up in Glasgow.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, it was voted the city of culture, wasn't it? Not that long
It,
ago, a few years ago.
it was actually the European City of Culture in the 80s, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then it was called the Garden Festival at the time. Uh, I won't go into my experience in the Coca-Cola rides. That was a bit of kind of up, down, roundabout. Didn't really enjoy that. um, but I have to say, in recent years, and I'm not plugging. Well, I'm plugging the NHS as well. Lincoln Hospital intensive care unit was absolutely mind blowing.
'Cause
Um,
you nearly died, didn't you?
well,
Very nearly.
technically I did die twice. My family were called on 2 occasions to say
Yeah.
bye, and then in the last hours before my life support was switched off, I bounced back, opened my eyes, and it was a long journey.
I mean,
It
I'm
was a long
interested.
journey.
Without getting too personal, has that changed your perspective of life and in terms of your priorities?
Um, from a packaging side, probably more determined because we'll go into in more detail the way I
Mm.
see things. I think more passionate. Um, but I mean, obviously, I had pneumonia and sepsis. Sepsis is like an absolute killer, and there's not enough awareness about it. So 6 months after um, I was I was going to say released. Sounds a bit like a prison sentence. But when I left intensive care, I was invited back, and it was a bit daunting going in, looking at the bed that you spent 3 months in. But yeah, I mean, the staff there were incredible, and I truly owe my life to them and their dedication. So yeah, I'm not saber rattling for the NHS, but yeah, I think yeah, I definitely appreciate it.
Very good. Very good. Well, look, I'm glad you're here. I mean, I've known you for, gosh,
Probably
probably
about
20
30 odd,
years.
40
Well,
years.
maybe, yeah, maybe 30 years. I think it goes back to when you and I were developing, or you were developing inks. I'd worked for a big paper board mill group called
Yeah,
Finboard, and you
yeah,
developed inks that would dry fast onto clay-coated liners. So that's how we got to know one another
yeah, that's correct.
up in Scotland, of course, working with the big printers and converters up there. Well, look, Ian, my next question is, tell us a bit more about your work and what motivates you each day to do what you do.
Um, what motivates me? Um, I might be outspoken here. I probably I'm renowned for that, but I do believe in speaking my mind.
Okay.
Um, I'm very fortunate that I've been involved going back. We will touch on it later, but my career started in formulations of ink. So I look at things and maybe a little bit of a different perspective to some of the people who come in. And I've been involved in right back to research and development of inks, color matching, etc. And for that, I'm probably quite blessed. Um, where I get very passionate is where I see and I know for sure things are not as correct as they should be.
Well,
Um,
from a safety point of view.
from a food packaging safety point of view, and yeah, definitely.
So for those that are listening, they're probably wondering what the heck we're talking about. We are talking about contaminants in inks, in direct food contact food packaging that can migrate across to human beings really rather easily, and perhaps people aren't aware of the risks involved. So do you want to sort of outline what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think it goes twofold. You go paper packaging,
Hmm.
recycled paper, is for me very taboo. Um, but it when you look at recycled paper, um, I'll use corrugated for example, and I'm not targeting the corrugated industry, but the contaminants within recycled paper and the end use of the packaging. It depends on your view, and there's not many people within the industry look at it that way. A lot of
So
people are.
sorry to stop you, but what are those contaminants in recycled fiber that people may
It,
not be
it,
aware of?
it's pretty much everything. So paper mills take printed packaging. It could be paper, it could be film packaging, some foil, and that goes into the paper mill, which generates your recycled paper. Um, I don't believe that it's regulated properly as it should be. Um, and if you look under a microscope at the recycled paper, it's full of pigments that can be seen. But the danger also lies within that what cannot be seen. So in there, you've got in the ink formulations, for example, and adhesives, some of your lamination adhesives. Some of these are UV cured, so you've got photo initiators. And the fact that nobody looks at the potential for migration to the food itself and the risk is that's a passion of mine, Ian.
Okay.
Um,
So, I mean, we're all taught in the paper packaging industry that paper is recovered, recycled and de-inked at the pulping stage. So the one assumes that the ink is removed at that point. Are you saying that not everything is removed?
Not in my belief, it's not. And I don't believe that there's enough quality control and analysis goes into what goes out into the printed industry, especially when you've got food potentially. And I'm not going to use pizza boxes. Well, I'm going to use pizza boxes as an example. But what could be either in the fluting or on the inside of the packaging, some contaminants that are in there that, let's say, the general public are not aware of.
So do the corrugated, I mean, I'm sorry, we're picking on the corrugated manufacturers.
No, that's fine.
Are the corrugated manufacturers aware of these contaminants where there's direct food contact, for example, pizzas? Are they aware?
Yes, yes.
And what are they
Um,
doing? And what are they doing about it?
um, uh, I don't believe anything. Or, I mean, I've personally been involved in looking at food contact, direct food contact lacquers to seal the contaminants.
Yep.
This went on about the best part of 10, 15 years. And in some applications, you've got cardboard discs still being on display with pizzas getting made that have food stuff on them. They have also additional oils that are added, and the risk of migration of the particulates within the paper can transfer onto the food.
And these particulates, these contaminants, what are those risks? I mean, what typically happens if they migrate into the food? What's the health
Okay,
risk?
right. Okay, so if you, and I'm going back to the formulation side of things, if I was given a task as a technician to match an ink that is food safe or most certainly fast as you would get in the tissue side of things. So it's got to be,
Do you just want to explain what you mean by fast? Because not everybody's going to understand that
all right,
terminology.
sorry. Fast is that it's color fast and the bleed resistance and the likelihood of transfer is minimal. So you would select the correct pigments for that. But if you've got a paper mill taking waste paper coming in from anywhere, that could be ink particulates that are not, or not the pigments that are color fast, and there is a risk that they could transfer.
Right. Okay.
But I'm not targeting just the corrugated industry because flexible packaging is no different. It's pigment selection, but in that you've then got the, and if you think what is the food side, which is the non-food side, will be in contact with the food side eventually. And even in the flexible packaging where you've got reel to reel, you've then got the ink on the printed surface is getting re-reeled into what will be the food side.
Yeah, the inside.
If that pigment's not correct or the resins are not correct, and I should add, you've also got the risk of retention of solvent. So if the
Yeah.
dryer's on press and the chill rollers are not absolutely calibrated properly and tested in production, then there could be solvent retention and the risk of migration to the food side.
And this is happening also in the tissue hygiene sector as
Yes, it
well,
is.
isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay. And what about other sectors, other packaging sectors? Is it
Uh,
happening with cartons, for example, folding cartons?
I think not in the carton side because the carton side use virgin craft.
Yep.
So that's got no recycled side to it. Effectively, it's virgin kraft on carton board.
Okay. So, okay, let's just sort of zero in a bit more on these contaminants. So, what are the really risky ones? You know, which chemicals, maybe colors, are the ones that are a problem? And are there alternatives? Can they be substituted with low migration alternatives?
So you're looking at your phenol,s which are either phenol pigments, certainly dye boosted, or copper ferro. These are not suitable. You've also got the risk of, I'll use a CI number, red 53-1, which is a barium like red sea, even taboo in packaging now, but still used. On the phenol,s which are blue 62, violet 27, you and pink 169, you do not have alternatives to these. Now that then leads on to things, brand names that are perhaps historical in their shade. It's not possible to match the same color on the alternatives. They're weaker, they're dirtier, and they just will not give the same shade, especially if it's measured digitally with a spectrophotometer.
And are the brand owners aware of the problematic colors that are causing problems?
Um, I honestly do not know, because one in particular would be Cadbury's purple.
Right?
I would think there's probably a discussion at board level, between, I would say, I know it's not Cadbury's anymore,
Those
but
Mondelez now, yeah.
um, you would like to think that there's a discussion going on between the packaging company, the brand name, but then pass down the line to the ink maker.
Mm.
And I know we've spoken about teamwork or a task force before, and this is a passion that if this is going to go anywhere, then there needs to be openness, transparency, and people meeting, either in the same room or certainly communicating that there is an issue. And when I say there is an issue, I, I mean there is an issue in certain areas. People are aware of it, and as long as people tick a box or turn a blind eye, then in another 10 years' time, it will still be the same.
But surely ink suppliers are certified under various ISO programs to eliminate risk. Is that not the case for all ink suppliers?
Um, I think if we're talking, everybody flies under the banner of that you are ISO 9001 2015 approved, ISO 2015 environmental, then sorry, 14001 2015 environmental. Um, some do not have it, and the problem there is some answer questionnaires that go out to say, are you approved? And the answer is, we don't have it yet, but we intend to. And that then gives the scope that there is a commitment from the company to do so.
Hmm.
But unless that is a firm commitment, then is it going to be followed up? And what is the range? Is there a target to actually achieve that? And the other one is you've obviously got the European coatings industry, you've got EPA, you've got the one in GB. So you've got all these institutions that are saying that you must have them. These are the guidelines. So as long as people adhere to the guidelines and show some commitment to the guidelines, then I'm not saying it's a tick box, but pretty much is that you comply. You've got the wish to take the industry forward, but in reality, I don't believe that there's enough control over what and where the industry is going. I think some people turn a blind eye to it.
Have any of these inks colours been banned yet or not?
Flannels are still used. I'm aware of some people in the tissue sector that print serviettes, still flannels, and I know the ink company are aware of it. The serviette producers are aware of it. So I think in that sector there tends to be this phrase transient food contact. Now, if you've got a sandwich sitting on either a pink napkin or a metallic, then metallic, for example, is full of copper. I think it's got about 35% copper in it.
Right.
If it's a funnel, you've got the risk of food migration. We then go into, and this is the problem where a lot of the pigment manufacture was transferred out to Asia. Now you will get, because I've seen it before, where you put your faith in the producer manufacturing to the strict guidelines. How do you actually, if it's not easily accessible where you can go and audit, how do you control that? I once sat in a plane with an MP who said to me, just buy your pigment locally. And I said, all your Ciba-Geigys, etc. I mean, most of the BSF pigments, okay, some are still manufactured in Germany, but all your blues, yellows, blues and greens are manufactured in India, and all your yellows, your oranges, your reds are manufactured in China. Now, it could be you and I buying a red 2 from a Chinese manufacturer. You put your questionnaire out, you get all the confirmation that everything is approved. Do you really know? And that's
so. When you've challenged people, whether they're ink suppliers, printers, etc., when you've challenged them and said, "Look, are you aware of these problems?" What's the sort of typical response you get?
mixed, I would say. Some are very professional. Well, I think everybody's professional because that's the industry that we're in. But I think if you start getting into cost and cost driven, then people will buy where they need to buy, because everybody's got to make a profit. Now, you might have a safety person, but that safety person might not be looking at what the end game is. It might be just looking at a data sheet where it says, "No, that complies," and again, it's tick box. Where if you're thinking about, well, that could be on a sandwich, on a napkin where my granddaughter's going to be sitting eating a sandwich, then that maybe puts a little bit of a different perspective on it. And maybe because I'm probably archaic and a bit dinosaur now, um, I do honestly care about the industry. I think I was brought up in a very strict um, ethos of development, and everything had to comply. I don't know whether you know or knew Cliff Coles in the past. Cliff ended up at Sun Chemical, um, head of technical, I think. Um, I had a very sound footing. He was a bit like my go-to hero. He was like my mentor. Um, I think our claim to fame was we formulated a eureka moment, NC polyurethane, and this is a journey back in time. It was the original marathon bar on the Opaline film,
Oh
now
yeah.
Snickers. A lot of people take it for granted, but I honestly believe, I mean, Cliff and I spent about 8 weeks in the lab trying all sorts of different resins, all sorts of pigment combinations
Mm.
to formulate that ink. And yeah, I was given a very sound background, not just color matching, but going into the research and development of it and
So,
making.
I mean, sorry to cut you off. You mentioned sort of the commercial pressures. Can you sort of go into that a little bit more? So, let's say there is a a safe ink. Pick a color. Let's say a blue. Um, and then there's a cheaper, less safe
Alternative.
ink
Yeah.
alternative. What is a what? Talk me through the what actually happens in reality.
Okay. I think a lot of the market now is it's changed. A lot of it's definitely cost driven, base schemes going in. So you're not getting finished ink that goes to press. A lot of it's ink kitchens, blend kitchens, where again you're assuming that the correct varnish has been put onto the correct pump, and it's mixed. You're not going to have technical issues down the line in print. Um, but because a lot of it's put out to contract, there's a tender process. So let's say there was a tender put out for, I'll just use corrugated. So the standard one would be yellow 13, some use yellow 3, red 53 1, red 2, orange 5, blue 15 3, some use blue 62, um, less of, but certainly violet 27. But, and a lot of it's colour percentage of pigment within the base scheme. So a lot of people put out tenders, and then there's a mad scramble to tender for the business. Some people might be 5% stronger, some people might be 10% weaker. But at the end of the day, you've got a procurement guy, and I've certainly dealt with certainly most of them in global level, where it comes down to you're too expensive and it cuts, 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 cuts. So then people start looking in the background
Cutting
about
corners.
what
Yeah.
what alternative, where can we source the same CI number, cast number of pigment, but let's have a look at what's available in the market. Now, are these pigment companies regulated in the same way?
Probably not.
Who knows?
Oh, it's very
It's
sobering,
getting a bit
Ian.
murky, Ian.
It is. I mean, look, you've been very good not to call anybody out, but I do sometimes wonder whether things don't change until you do actually start calling people out.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come back to that. But look, Ian, that's rather chilling to learn what you've been. Well, you've been telling me this for years, and sort of reached a point you couldn't say anything whilst you were employed by a big ink group, and now you're
Yeah.
independent. You can pretty much say what you want, which is good. All right, I'm going to move on to my next question, if that's all right.
Okay.
So tell us a bit about your biggest challenge that you've faced so far. What would that be?
Right. Well, apart from surviving life,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a big challenge. Yeah,
yeah, that was probably number. I've made a note down: surviving pneumonia and sepsis.
yeah,
Um, I, I think I've got some training that I do, and I like to. I think it's the biggest challenge I see, and it's from a personal perspective. I think a lot of the skill set in the industry. I know technology's moved on, people digitally measure color, etc. Um, and I do come from an older background where um, I actually ran a printing press for BPI many years ago after coming out of the lab. Um, and some of that was kiss impression, winding inks, and strict viscosity control. Before you had color match prediction from X-Rite, the lab technicians, we used to have the colors on the wall, and we used to go clean color. That's the best color to select for price, properties, etc. You had to do it manually, and you had to start. Now it's click of a button. Oh, there's a formulation, and it's not always the most commercial formulation
no,
that's the best you can get. That's the closest, but that's the cheapest. Um,
yeah.
and I honestly think the biggest challenge for me within the ink industry is, and I know FA do their training, um, and people get a certificate. The skill set's not the same as it was. Um, I, 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 for all the right reasons, I just think that people should be taught properly. I mean, people say kiss impression. They just press a button and the analytics comes out and there's more impression goes on. Where doing it by hand, I'm not saying it's not moved forward for the right reasons. Of course it has,
It's all
because
about speed, isn't it? Speed of setup. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. I could tell you the biggest waste of money on ink in the corrugated industry.
this is.
I start, and I'm not going to mention the corrugated company, but I sat with two guys at global level, and over dinner we discussed waste of ink. And I said, I used to run a solvent-based press, and I used to get a bit of cardboard and scrape all the ink, and some people still do it today, all the ink, because you can't put it down the drain. So you scrape it into the bucket and you've got no waste. Water based is completely different, because and it is speed of setup. Every single ink unit within the factory dumps about 1.5 to 2 kilos down the drain at every color change.
Wow.
And what I said was, you've got a doctor blade, so you've got an end seal, you've got end seals. Why not? And I'm sure it's been designed and taken up by Bob's or somebody by now, brand name. Um, an end seal, but smaller, that comes across inside the chamber and squeegees the ink down, and it's collected into the bucket, and then you wash up. Now, if you've got a factory with, let's say, 2 8-color presses, which is not uncommon, and they run 10 color changes a day, they're probably dumping 200, 300 kilos of ink down the drain
Wow.
through the day. That's
Wow.
the biggest That is the biggest waste. And
Is it?
then that's environmental because you've got ink going down.
Well, actually, out of interest, what happens to those waste inks? Where do
I
they go?
think it goes through an effluent plant.
Right.
Some don't have an effluent plant, but even I'll go back to when I was at Antonine. We had an effluent plant which it goes through filtration. You drop in ferric sulfide, and all the solids fall to the bottom, and you end up with a cake. The cake goes to landfill, which is about 150 kilos, and the rest gets turned back into reasonable water.
So it
But
doesn't get
that cake goes into landfill,
doesn't go
and
to
then
incineration.
that's full of pigment going to landfill.
So it
Pigment and
doesn't get
resin.
incinerated. It doesn't get incinerated.
No, no.
Wow. Every day's a school day, right? Okay. Blimey. So, right, moving on. Another question. What would you say have been your biggest achievements, Ian, so far?
I did mention the formulating the NC polyurethanes for marathon. I'll
Mars.
always remember that. It was weeks and weeks and weeks it took us to develop it.
Mhm.
And that was for, if you remember, cold seal wasn't around then.
Yeah.
It was wrapped in paper. And the key to that was no odor in the ink. It gave all the properties, and it could be cold sealed with a release lacquer. And that was a big development at the time.
I can imagine. Mm.
Um, the other one, which I was absolutely astonished that, and I'm not, I don't want to be political because it might come back and bite me in the bum, but um, when I arrived at an ink company, I was astonished to find out that they didn't have um, an ink for lamination, which I thought was quite easy at the time, just because of the resin technology. And they're using that today, two ink companies. And it was really just quite simple. But yeah, I was behind that. But
Okay.
I'll go unnamed.
Go unnamed. Probably wise. So what's your message to your younger self?
I have made some notes here.
Have you?
Um,
Ah,
I would learn more and trust fewer.
right. Okay.
I, some of it was passing on technology, like advice and technical, who
Yeah.
then stole it to be their idea. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm not saying don't trust, but effectively choose who you trust.
Yeah.
The other one would most definitely be, again, technology given in good faith. Um, that would be me. Apart from investing more when you're younger and pensions and stuff like that, we're all guilty of that.
So who inspires you, Ian? They can be alive or not.
Well, I did mention my mentor Cliff Coles.
Is he the guy,
I,
is he?
I think Cliff, George Waddle was my sort of technical in infancy, but Cliff Coles is the one that, yeah, because of the
What about
development.
what about outside of work? Characters that inspire you.
Uh, this this is definitely going to separate
Not
a few people.
don't say a football player for Christ's sakes.
No, it was Jose Mourinho. I, I thought when he was at Chelsea, it was unbelievable. I still remember the Tammy when he was banned from the touchline and he was caught sitting in a microphone in the stand. But yeah, he was inspirational. Um, Sir Alex Ferguson just being Scottish and doing what he
Yeah,
achieved, considering he was about to be fired if he hadn't won the FA Cup.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I've mentioned Cliff. and there's the few. That's probably put an end to this interview.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And Semi
So,
Ballesteros, Semi,
oh, the golfer.
he was
Mm,
my absolute hero. He's dead now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Obviously tragically died of brain tumor, but
He was
yeah,
good.
he was my absolute hero.
So tell me something extraordinary about you, Ian, that nobody knows.
I've already said the sepsis pneumonia thing.
Come
Coming
on,
back from that,
you
that
can't use
was
that. You can't use that, mate. I'm sorry. It's going to have to be
something
something.
something extraordinary about me. Uh, my wife's going to hate me. Um, 3 marriages.
Oh,
You
okay.
can edit that
That's extraordinary.
out.
And you're still smiling.
Well, I mean, I got married at 20, divorced at 21, and then I was married for about, I don't know, what age is Dale? 31, 41. So, yeah, best part of 40 years, or 30 years in reality. But, and then I'm happily married now to Tracy. I've got loads of granddaughters, um, son-in-laws. So yeah, happy families. And Tracy, she brought me back to life. She
Good
sat by
girl.
my bed for 4 months.
Good girl. And so, what book or film has had the biggest impact on you?
Believe it or not, and you're probably going to know the author of this. Um, I I can't really say I had a, yeah, I've got a few favorite films, but one book that I found truly fascinating, and I only read it in the last month, but it was environmental. Um, it was called Paul the Beaver Saves York.
Okay, didn't know that one.
It was given to me, sent to me. I actually purchased it. Sorry, um, by Jane Cunningham.
Ah, okay.
Um,
Just repeat the title of it again, just because I think you got cut off a bit. What's it called?
Paul the Beaver Saves York.
Paul Beaver Saves York. I'll check that out.
It's more like I'm not saying it's a child's book, but it's animated like a child's book. But
Mm,
I took time to read beyond what it was. You can get it on Amazon. Um, and where I found it fascinating was more from an environmental point of view,
mm,
where this Paul the Beaver, because of all the flooding, they were trying to
mm,
find a solution for the flooding because York got flooded.
mm.
Um, and they found a solution with beavers going in to create dams.
Yeah, I heard about this. Mm.
And that is absolutely, it really resonates with what um, probably I'm like. I'm all things environmental. I can't stand you get enough of it here at McDonald's, and you can edit that out, but people have got no respect for, and it's education, but you've got drinks, takeaway bags that I've showed you, get thrown all over the place. And I have to say, there's not enough bins either,
Mm,
around these places.
mm.
But I mean, people drive away and they just discard their waste. And that, from an environmental point of view, it's terrible.
There's I mean, we hadn't planned to talk about this, but there is a particular issue at the moment, as a direct result of the US trade tariffs. China is now starting to, and not just China, but also other parts of Asia are now dumping paper products and other products in Europe, which are laced with PFOAs and other
Yeah,
forever chemicals,
unknown.
nasties. Um, it's something that a lot of people are not aware of
No,
course,
no, no.
and adds to this sort of cocktail of toxins that we're uh, putting into the food chain.
Yeah.
Through pack, not just through packaging, but through clothing and
Yeah.
saucepans and all sorts of other products where these
I'll
contaminants
tell you a
are
funny
running at
one
will.
in a minute. I'll tell you a funny one in a minute, just regarding.
How do you think this is going to pan out, Ian? How do we stop it, in your view?
I think it's a difficult one. I know it starts with education. I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time in Germany and Holland. They don't seem to have the same problem that we have. And or certainly the airports and train stations that I've been in. I think the public are probably more educated. Um, and I honestly do, because uh, I just think it's more in their nature to they're more disciplined
Right.
in recycling.
Yeah.
But I think in general, I mean, I look at even our household waste, and a lot of it's created by ourselves. Um, you've got things like, and I know Essity and the big boys are going to hate me for this, but, please edit it out. But things like disposable diapers, femcare products. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, the amount. I mean, I come back to when the nappies were like you put a liner in and the pin. Um,
Yeah, but young
then you
mothers,
no choice.
young
They,
mothers are
they
not going
don't.
to go back. No,
No, it
they
won't,
won't.
and it is a major problem because
Well, it is, but
um, it's just changing the nappy and it's in the bin,
yeah,
and it just
yeah,
goes to general waste.
yeah, yeah.
So
Waste management is a big headache, that's for sure. Well, look, Ian, lovely to chat with you.
I'm
Um,
going. I won't finish, but I've got that funny story to tell you.
tell me the funny story afterwards. But anyway, look, lovely to see you. Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
and your insights. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ian.